Yeah.
1 second, and now you guys are recording.
Okay. So, Paulo, gonna introduce something or just going?
Yeah. Is it okay for me to do it now? Because I did not hear the scary voice telling me that live.
Now, the scary voice is, just to be clear, the scary voice is when we connect it, and
Yeah.
then when my scary voice saying we're on is when it's actually live.
Okay. So we are live now then.
Okay.
Live streaming is on.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll introduce our guests today. Yeah. So thank everyone for coming. We have a larger audience today. Um, yeah. So Alexandre Fenerich, I know him for quite a while now. I think we know each other for some years. He was pretty much involved in most of the scenes I've been also involved with. Um, he used to be. He actually has a very rich academic background. I would say he is deeply involved with research since his undergraduate years, if I'm not mistaken. He's been he was a teacher at another university at a city close to Rio prior to becoming a colleague of mine at Unirio. We have some common interests in research and artistic productions. Yeah. But besides that, we have like how can I say? Most of the guests here have I met them for quite a while now. Um, and with Ale, it's no different than that. I could say that his artistic interests um, are really connected to mine in a way. He's been doing, he's been producing compositions, uh, mixing live performances with recordings. Nowadays, with field recordings, he has an interest in also in language and place, which I think it's an interest. It's actually an interest of mine as well. Um, and I wrote an article on some of his productions for a book recently released. And I would like to dedicate some time to comment on that. Um, I guess if I would have to, if I could sum uh, Alexandre's activities, I would say that the promenade is an interesting category to some of his artistic activities and research as well. One could notice that since his, I would call, since his composer years, with such a piece as the Escada Infinita, which is the infinite staircase. I remember hearing this piece at one of the biennales of contemporary Brazilian music. It was a piece like full of connections with other material. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, it has a quote on Bartok.
Yeah.
I guess orchestra concerto, right? And it has this idea of a movement uh, um, which is going on, right? This idea of the infinite staircase, that as if you are going somewhere, and the idea of the promenade that does not stop. Somehow I connect this to Bartok's quote. I don't know why. Maybe it's just my imagination and my memories, right? But this was there already. Another another instance of this idea, of this expanded idea of promenade in my imagination, connected to Ale's artistic production, is his duo with Giuliano Obici, the N-1 duo, which is one of my favorite projects. How do I connect this to a specific definition of mine of what a promenade is? In N-1, the impression I had is that they were experimenting with devices all the time, and devices that could work or could not work, and this was part of the performance. So I remember Ale performing with turntables, but having to set the turntables all the time with modified vinyl discs. So the whole process of the performance was in itself experimental enough, or open to failure enough, as to be something which today I connect with the definition of promenade as connected to Fenerich's praxis as I understand them. Another instance of this character that keeps walking in Ale's praxis is his piece, the peripatetic collection of sounds, in which he built a composition from field recordings he's taken in a lot of his trips, and performed some instruments, most of them percussion ones, while this collage of field recordings was sounding. And some things astonished me in the performances of this piece, which I could see, which I could hear Ale's performing. One of the things that strikes me in his performances is that he has some sort of control of the room, through the volume of the sounds that come through the loudspeakers. It's like he's transferring all the time the center of attention to hearing what comes through the loudspeaker, to hearing the situation of the performance itself. So you have this promenade from the piece, from Ale's work, to our hearing. This is something I found fantastic. Another thing which I connect to Ale's praxis is that you have material collected from very different sources, but somehow he is able to connect all these ideas by proposing a character a character that is moving forward, that is walking all the time through this piece. You can hear his steps, you can hear his clothes noises while he is moving. So all these different sources come together in this character, which is always moving forward. In a limit, I understand that his promenade is not only the promenade of someone who's walking, but someone is at this promenade is the thoughts of someone, is the development of this thinking that keeps connecting these different experiences and moving forward. And Ale, I would say, is this character that is sharing, he keeps sharing his thinking with us through his works. I don't know what else to say. I think this touches upon many of the ways I hear Ale's work. So I'll just leave it with him now. And Ale, you are welcome to join us.
Well, Paulo, thank you for this, well, incredible introduction. Um, I'm just, happy to hear from you that you remember so much thing I even don't remember anymore, but you still remember these connections between pieces. Uh, Later I can organize some links about the pieces you just said. If somebody is interested, is gonna be on the chat. I think I'm gonna put it now.
Cool. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you, Ale.
Yeah, thank you, because I didn't organize that, and that's great. The other one is the YouTube video from the performance with Juliano, N-1. The first one is the Escada Infinita, the infinite staircase Paulo just mentioned, has mentioned, and coleção peripatética de sons is here. Is an album. Well, thank you for the invitation.
Cool.
Uh, as Paulo said, I'm very interested. I have a lot of interest in working with nowadays with field recording, and especially on this walking situation. So I'm trying to combine listening experiences while I'm walking, especially on cities. Last year, I've made a project in Rio, hearing the region I'm living. I was living in Rio last year, which is not a very typical region from Rio de Janeiro, the city. It's in the Praça da Bandeira. It's a very central and, how can I say, abundant area from the city. And but there are some very unique sound, not only sound, but experiences while you are walking there. And then I try to collect that by photography and by recordings. And I've made an installation of it. I'm making another installation right now. I'm gonna present here. Well, here I am now in Berlin since last September, and I'm gonna stay here to the next August. So I've been made here in Berlin a research project uh, called postdoctoral project, and I received um, uh, a, stipendium. What's the name in English of that? It's
Grant.
a grant,
Funding.
a funding from the Humboldt Foundation, and it's supposed to go right now. No, on March to May. I supposed to make some walking recordings, but then the quarantine came and I couldn't walk anymore. But my project is connected with that. It's a project about to hear the city of Berlin, which is nowadays I can say is a very nowadays I can say after reading some particular authors, I can say Berlin is a typical globalized, super um, super neoliberal city. I mean, that's the one of the top neoliberal cities for two reasons. First, because it there are a lot of people from abroad here and living as immigrants here, and somehow people find a better maybe a better way of living here than other parts of Europe somehow, if they are allowed to stay here. Yeah, there's a very clear line separating people from outside Europe and from inside Europe. If people are allowed to stay here for some reason, it's a better, maybe it's not a good place, but I believe it's a better place to live than other parts of Europe. And the other reason is Berlin is a typical. I just read today definition, very important definition, is a place no truth is valid. There's no, everything stands and nothing stands because it's somehow a controlled democracy. That I will not enter this subject, but I must tell Berlin is a very different city because of this combination of factors. So there is well, economically is important, or people are encouraged to do or to work with creative in the creative economy, and this has some tensions we can discuss later. Anyway, but my project on the beginning was to work with this listening through the different voices in the city, from people from the south, from the global south, especially through language I don't know. So my ears were looking for those sonorities on the street. So I went to neighborhoods, to areas with more Turkish or Vietnamese people, and stay recording there. And I could make that in the end of the last year and the beginning of this year. I could make a large hours of field recordings. And then the pandemic situation arose and I couldn't move. In the first moment, I could walking around my neighborhood, but my area is a very how can I say, it's a very I can say it's not elite, but it's a posh area. It's not an area from immigrants from the south. I live in Prenzlauer Berg. It used to be uh, 15 years ago a very a not expensive place, but now all the ring area is expensive, but Prenzlauer Berg still is more elite than other areas in the center, in the ring center. Ring, I mean the S-Bahn. Inside the S-Bahn. S-Bahn is the train, the urban train. Uh, um, uh, Line in the city. Nowadays, all the neighborhoods are almost the same price. So this is something to to point out. The whole city is changing very fast because of the neoliberal situation. And I've been going to Berlin since, I don't know, 2005 or even early. I've been here many times, more than 10 times, and I could see the progressive changing of the city. And I can tell superficially that it has changed a lot. Anyway, but in the first moment, I was interested to listen to those voices, and I could record them. And then I couldn't anymore. I had to stay on my neighborhood. And after 2 or 3 weeks, I couldn't, of course, uh, I couldn't anymore go outside like everybody else. And then, like everybody else, the dreams appeared. A lot of dreams has appeared, you know. Uh, a lot of dreams. The dreams has more importance in my imagination, and I couldn't record outside anymore. So I started to note them, and I believe in October, me and Katia Guedes, the singer who performed the piece I've composed, the piece I'm going to discuss with you, we have proposed a concert for the BK series called Une Hörte Musik. It's a very traditional contemporary concert series from Berlin. And so I had this situation to have I had to make a piece for electronics and voice. And then I asked myself, what am I gonna do? I have this task to do, but my first idea on the beginning on February was to start to write down some sounds I've heard on the street and to write as phonetically and melodically, and to make somehow a combination of recorded sounds with sing with sounds she will sing performing. But then the pandemic, the quarantine came, and I started to write my dreams. And in some point of it, I remembered the Guimarães Rosa tale, Na Terceira Margem do Rio, which in English is, I don't know. And let me see. I forgot to translate that. Is the third? I don't know. I don't remember what margin is.
Bank,
Somebody
the
knows?
third bank of the river.
Yes, exactly. It's the third bank of the river. You're right. The third bank.
Is it right? Is it right?
It's right. I've heard this name. It's the
That
official
bank is
translate. Yeah,
bank is correct. That I
it's
can see.
correct. Yeah,
The word
you
bank
understand
makes
that.
sense. Yeah, yeah.
It makes sense for you.
Yeah, well, you usually have two banks, so this is the third one.
Yes, it's the third one because the
Yeah.
stories. I don't know if everybody knows that the main story of the tale is out of the blue. The father from the family, has no name. He's the father. He just said to his family, "Well, I'm gonna live inside a boat in the middle of the river. Bye bye," and that's it. Just go there, and he lives into the boat until the end of his life, actually. And the tale is told by his son, and I have to read the tale, but somehow this is the situation. And I was in the middle of the quarantine, speaking very badly German. So I was really, me and my wife, we were really afraid to be sick, you know, because we speak badly German. Imagine in a hospital, interned in a place nobody speaks uh, Portuguese, firstly, and doctors, nurse, they speak English, but not everybody, and actually people don't like to keep speaking in English, and so we're afraid of that. And of course, the isolation represents also this tale arose on my imagination and on my memory. So I've decided to combine somehow this those dream notes with Guimarães Rosa's tale. It is about a father. So catching Paulo's listening my about my works, uh, I've created in this particular work, which is Sonhos, Caminhos, Fragmentos, Dreams, Paths or Ways, Fragments, the name of it, uh, a dream situation, somehow, you can say. It is composed mostly with, um from the, you can say, a tape background from field recordings in the city, on around the city, in some places like Alexanderplatz, which is close to my house, close where I'm living now, and Neukölln. Neukölln is a place, is an area with a strong Turkish immigration and also Syrian immigration. So we hear a lot of Turkish and Arabic. So this is the background, and uh, upon this background, I've constructed the singer's performance, and well, so I will try to show you the what I've made with the texts, because I create a very simple um, changing combinations with texts to combine both texts. I mean, the Guimarães Rosa tale with my my notes. I'll show. I think it's gonna be easier if if I show you my okay, he asked me if I have some stupid stuff. So where is it? Sorry about that. Do you can see my?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay. So I prepared something here, but I am quite here right now. So this is a Max MSP patch. On this side, we have a very, how can I say? It's a very simple object from RTC library. It's from Karl-Heinz Essel from Vienna. Here's the piece. And here I take randomly a piece of a piece. So I told from this message box until where I would like to cut, and then I just take a piece of the cut, and then
What
I
is the piece?
combine.
What is the piece in the sense?
What? Sorry?
What is the piece in the sense?
The piece object, you mean?
Yeah, oh, it's an object. I don't know what the piece object is.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry, Ali, speak,
yeah,
please.
yeah. No, it just take a piece.
No, sorry. The
Yeah.
piece object is a sub patch, right?
No, it's an object. It's
It's an object. It's a native Max object.
no, it's not native. It's from the library.
Okay, it's from the RTC library.
Yeah, it's
And
from.
what does it do?
Oh, sorry.
What does it
What
do?
does this object do?
Oh, the piece object cuts from the 11, in this case, from the 11 to 72. How can I say
Of
that?
the text. I see. I
From
see.
the
I see. It takes
yeah,
it takes like a subset of the text. Okay. Okay. I
yeah. I
understand.
just cut it and cut it again. That's what it does. Yeah. It's a very simple object. You can do whatever you want.
William Burroughs object.
Exactly. That's exactly. It's a cut up object. It's a very simple William Burroughs object. Exactly that. And then this is the pieces of texts. This is the Guimarães Rosa text. This is my text. And then we have a third text coming around here. Okay? I keep combining, keep trying this a lot. It's the cut up technique from William Burroughs, or if you can say it's from the cadavre écrit from the French surrealism. But here I'm doing with my own dreams, combining with Guimarães Rosa tale.
And I guess the Burroughs is actually not such a good example because he would have just cut the text right down the middle of the box, just a subset of it. Like you're going from one character to the next, right? Or one start character to an end character.
But somehow it's the same I'm doing here because I just cut in the middle of the tail and putting another text completely different.
Oh, okay. I see. Cool.
And
Yeah,
create something else. Exactly that. If I can read in Portuguese, monster of he was a man. I can translate that. Positive since childhood, and a boy. Many people would so it's nonsense at all. if you combine two texts, but here it's already he's not yet so combined. Then I try to read this text and I catch some phrases like that. And I've made the same procedure. Like gravatas borboletas puídas. Gravatas borboleta puídas. Fazer para si uma canoa. Gravatas fazer para si uma canoa ou borboletas puídas. It has in Portuguese no sense, no grammatical, no semantic sense at all. And no syntactic sense. Yeah, if you combine that. And I started to combine the combination. Here is the combination entered to it. And it's being combined with this other sentence here. Yeah, that's somehow video here. Like that, to create another, and another, and another, and so on. And it goes and goes. It's very unorganized, as you can see. Completely. I've made that really fast because it was working, then I couldn't prepare a proper presentation patch for it. But after all, you have a very strange text. I'm gonna read that in Portuguese. Gravatas borboleta fazer para de muitas cabeças monstro. Nosso pai mandou ambos na Cinelândia um robô mastigador de línguas, si, uma no diário com a gente, minha irmã, com pouca clareza, canoa, puídas. There's no sense, but there are some images coming from it. And if you keep reading that, some words appear like Cinelândia, gravatas, borboleta, monster, monstro, etc. It goes and goes, and the same strange text starts to make some sense by ear, for your ears. And after all, I've made a very dirty combination, dirty random combination. Put all the sentence I figured out they were good, and made a collect. Collect is also another of those objects from the RTC library. It's like that. It collects and makes one single message from it. So it's a very dirty work, but it worked for me. And from that, I've made a score. This is the singer score. She starts, what's the name of it? Murmuring with no vocalization. The piece. She starts the piece, and the piece starts with a very noisy, very dense sound. We can't hear, even if you try to hear, we can't hear through this. It's a curtain sound. From that, I remember Stockhausen piece, Trans, just was here, and I went to the library and I tried to analyze this piece weeks before I started to create this one. So I somehow borrow his idea and create a curtain of sound. And then some vocalization appears from the singer's performance. Those syllables on red, you can see the syllables on this one she could vocalize. So it sounds like faz uma mi res. It's like as it's perfect for this situation because it sounds like it's glitchy. But all right, that's glitchy. Yeah, so it grows. It starts to be more dense, and some words appear, and afterward, some sentence appears, complete sentences. In the end, some phrases appears, and it lasts almost 6 minutes. That's the first part of the piece. So you see, I and this is in from this dense sound and enters to the sounds from sound walkings. So oops. Is right here. Of course, I don't know if you're hearing. Are you hearing something?
Seems to be unclear, but if you like, you could just go ahead and paste the link.
But I think the best way is to use the share a YouTube video option.
Yeah,
It works quite well. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just
I
that
tried.
he has other stuff he's gonna share otherwise.
Yeah, I forgot. We can do that. I will share this and I point just the beginning of it. I forgot to point it out. Let's see if it works. Okay, it works. Private occurred here.
Minhas, clareza, letra, mãos, nós, si, como é, meu, voltou, nenhuma. Deu fazer com poucas nessas sem conversa grava borboleta nosso pai Lândia.
Anyway, it goes. Sorry to interrupt the video, but it goes and goes, and but this beginning has this situation I've just described, and it was constructed this way, somehow with a cut-up technique, and this is almost made for live, for live performance, for streaming performance, because it sounds like something's bad in the sound system is going on. Something bad in the sound system is going on, because and she made that very well. She was very precise doing that. She has a long experience on this kind of project. Anyway, so let me come back to here.
And what is the backing, like the backing tape, or is it live electronics? Is it the field recordings that you did that is processed? What's the backing for the vocal part?
The backing was a syllable. I've made a very, very slow granulation. using it's not object in C sound, is I forgot the name in C sound, but it's a fog object in C sound. Fog is a very old granulator, and you
FOF
can
and fog. Yeah.
it's like a FOF,
Yeah.
but instead of a sinusoidal sample, it takes a actual sample, a recorded sample, as the seed for it. So it's a very old fog. Let me see if I find it. Foggy C sound. Actually, this, if you're interested in, is this one. Is the foggy. I don't know if somebody works with C sound. It's still working with this sound. But sometimes I prefer C sound to have this very precise and well cutted process, like that one. It's a densification of nice. If you hear in the beginning of the piece, it has somehow a rhythm, and then it's starting to be dense. It's a granulator. I love this granulator. For me, it's one of the best sounded granulators. The sound is great for me. I think for me, it's the best granulator I know. Anyway, so continuing that, I will continue with that. Okay. All right. Can we go?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So so this one was the first scene. For the second scene, I've made some micro montages from fragments of voices from unknown languages for me. And they, for micro montages, I mean for micro montages, I mean to combine both 2 or 3 very small samples. And those samples I would like to play for you as examples of it. If you'd like to, we've tried that. That's the best idea. No, guys, I just put on the shot here a link for the sample. If you'd like to listen, I wait for you. It's a very short, I think 3 or 4 samples of it. So please do it. Just click on the link and listen. I'll do the same.
Every time I hear that sample, I turn to the left. It's so real to me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Could you guys hear that?
Yes, I could.
Yeah. I take a little bit more time. So there are 2 samples, very short ones, and those were made in both in Alexanderplatz. So they have this very wide space, very enormous place, because Alexanderplatz is a central square in Berlin. Berlin, I don't think the city has a center, but we can say it's a very central square. And there's
Okay,
nothing.
I think Martin has a question actually.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
kind of seeing him raise his hand,
Okay,
but
go ahead,
I guess
Martin.
I will
Sorry.
moderate that because maybe you don't know the chatting hand raising system.
Okay, go ahead, Martin. I couldn't see your hand. Please ask me.
Martin, you're now muted. Do you have an actual question?
I demuted. Hi to Berlin from Vienna. Was it made
Okay.
with OKM recording with binaural headphones? I had headphone mics. This recording sample
Yes, this one
on
was
Alexanderplatz.
this one was recorded with binaural microphones.
Therefore, really vivid. Yes,
Yes,
very nice.
they were recorded with the cheapest binaural microphone from Holland. I don't remember actually the model.
Yeah, I think I know the kit. I'll search for it in a link and I'll post it in the chat box, right? It's from Roland, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. And I've put some, the cloth you have to clean the glasses, to clean glasses. The very thin cloth used to clean glasses. I've just made a gambiarra on it, and it worked perfectly to avoid wind blowing and the sounds from wind. And I put on the normal headphone like that, and I put them here the microphones. I didn't put for the original version on my ears because it falls down. It falls down a lot and disturbs me. So I put in another headphone, this normal headphone here. So, and then I went out, and these microphones they worked well in these very wide places like Alexanderplatz. And Alexanderplatz is has a very vivid acoustic, as you can hear, because it's so yes, very vivid, Martin. Yeah, because of the it's a lot of concrete and not so many people because it's huge and not so many trees as well. So it has a lot of reverberation. It's not reverberation because it's an open space, but it, the sounds goes fast through the area because of the concrete and in some buildings with glasses with glass windows. So
Ale,
yes,
could you please check? It's the CS10EM, right? From Roland.
I really don't know, man. I don't remember. But if
It's in the chat box.
yeah, it's the simplest one from Holland.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. It's not a. It's just, but I have a very good recorder. Not a very good, but almost professional recorder, which is one moment. I will pick the recorder.
Yeah, just a note from someone who used those microphones also. I think they are actually very good if you are hearing the results with headphones. I also used these exactly pair of microphones to record, for instance, Cidade Arquipélago,
Oh,
and I
really? Yeah.
they sound really good. I mean,
Yeah, it sounds good.
and they are cheap.
They're quite cheap here, not in Brazil, but in Europe they're cheap. And I have this Tascam, it's very good one. I don't. What is where are? I don't know. It's a Tascam. Ah, it's a DR 70D. This guy. Can you see that? Yeah, I right here. And it has a very good phantom power for those enters here, those P2. And what I've made in the microphone was that, can you see? I put this code on it. Yeah. Very easy, and put a wire here and some plastic here to fix it. And it works very well.
So you were not monitoring yourself while you were recording because you had the binaural microphones like on a headband from another headphone. So
yes,
I'm
I'm monitoring myself, but from another microphone, from another headphone.
Going to the recorder and then okay.
Yeah, and I enter with the other one, and I avoid the headphone from the microphone, because here is the microphone capsule, and here's the headphone capsule. So you're supposed to put this on your ears, but it's not work. This don't work for me. I don't like it.
It's weird. You can generate some feedback with it if you and completely
sometimes
out of phase, right? So it can mess a lot with the.
Yeah, and it's disturbing after 1 or 2 hours working with that. It just I don't like it. Anyway, guys, those the samples were from this particular. It's full of this in the piece. Those were very pure, and then I will come back to the piece. Then I have combined, and I've made this micro montage with those samples, and after that I've perceived some melodic lines, some patterns, phonetical and melodic patterns, and I wrote those down, those busters down for the singer. And I will play for you I will play for you 3 samples from that. They came directly from the other samples, from my listening for the other samples, from the street samples. Those I'm gonna play is from Katja Guedes' performances. Okay, this one. Could you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you like to compare with the other samples, those one again, maybe you're gonna recognize some. I will paste them again. Some you can compare the samples.
So what you're saying, Ale, is that you transcribed some of of the voice patterns.
Somehow I've transcribed. Yes, that's why I'm saying some of the patterns I've heard at the streets, I've transcribed it for the middle section for this piece for the singer. And somehow in the piece they are playing together. The original version is being played with the live performed version on scene, but in a kind of a mess. So in the first hearing, you can't notice that. That was my idea in the beginning. You can hear that somehow. Of course. And after that, you can hear afternoon. And during that, I've made those micro montages that are here. This is, so if you listen to this, please just click on the link.
Just to clarify something, guys.
Yeah.
We are
I think
we're
just to make
always
sure.
trying different formats for our presentations, right? So today, what Alexandre is doing, instead of sharing an audio during the presentation for everyone to hear it together, he is sharing links through the chat box so that we could individually listen to the material he is sharing. The reason for this is the material he is sharing is really rich in the stereo configuration he prepared. So it's better for us to listen to it individually instead of chopping everything to the mono format that Jitsi usually does. That's it. So you have to go to the chat box, access the link, and listen to the audio, right?
Yes. Are you there, guys? Yes.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Ale.
Oh, yes. Okay. Sorry, guys. Yes, is that format working for you or not at all? That's the first question.
I think it's a good idea for these recordings just because of what Paolo said, because they're they are really rich in the stereo field. So I think unless I don't have a problem, but if someone does, please speak up and we can maybe do it both ways. But I think if this works for everybody, this is a good method for these particular recordings.
Okay, guys. I don't have much more. I just have those. I just played. Anyway, but on this other samples I sent to you, I've made those combinations of two. I will stop this. Not right now. Anyway, I've made these combinations of two or more samples from street. Sorry. And I did that on pure data. And maybe you can hear some noises, actually, percussive noises. It's because something on the street had this noise and then it catch it. And the combination create an attack, for example. I've made a lot of we can say in Portuguese, uma cama, a bed, from those combinations. A lot of it. I have a lot of fun doing that. And then I started to cut it, to do little cuts. Anyway, I put on the video from the performance where it starts to appear, and how maybe then maybe you can figure out how it sounds with the singer on stage. Yeah, I'm gonna play from YouTube. Everybody gonna hear from that. Okay.
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 Uma canoa. Nosso pai não dizia. Com gato me com spray segura manteruio pois o o ganamo da bonita segura manteruio saca manica namuta muta Teruso, teruso, mene, o cada muta. Segure fonte, cana da ufune, so mene matuta.
And that was the scene. I will stop this YouTube disturbing me. Stop. From here. So guys, I don't know if you could understand from my explanation what I did, but I've made those very short combinations of voices, and underground that was walking through to U-Bahn station, a metro station in Mehinda. I think it was Mehinda. It was in Mehinda, yeah. And what happened there was there was this guy playing accordion. So during that, you can hear from underground this accordion, yeah, going around, and some children around. They've made micro montages on this, and the singer she sang this versions of those voices on the on the top of it. So it's a combination of a combination. It was like that. Ta, 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 ta. Yeah, this was the idea. This was the like a crazy area going on. And the singer Katja, she has a very wide range voice. She could sing very easily a D, or she goes onto a F sharp very easily. She sings the C this high note is a C, or a C sharp, and goes down very easy. So I say, okay, let's do that. let's compose for her voice. I can show it for you.
to make sure
the
everybody.
score?
I mean, Cliff is not hearing the YouTube. Did anybody else have trouble hearing the YouTube?
Oh, sorry.
I don't think it's your fault, Ale. I think, yeah. Yes. But the link worked. So for any of those who couldn't hear it, I posted the link in the chat so you can listen to it on your own.
Oh, sorry, but in YouTube to hear that what I've just explained, it starts on the 5 minutes 30 seconds around that. So we can. It was here.
Well, thank you.
From there until 7:20.
So where is this piece now? I mean, is this piece? I guess I'm confused about the timeline. One, because time is just completely messed up these days in general, but also because this is obviously a piece that's very recent or in progress. I mean, I guess I can't imagine even working with someone right now, but here you are working with this person in the studio. So that must have been done recently now.
Oh yeah, that's a very good question. I forgot to tell you guys. No, this was in a concert hall, in a theater, but on a very specific Berliner performance. I mean, we've been only me, the singer, and the technician, nobody else. And it was a performance for YouTube, actually. It was a very strange situation. Very strange.
But recent, so then very recently. That's
Yeah, it was on the 12th of May. The last 12th May.
Yeah, it was like a month ago, right?
Like a month ago, yeah. Like a month ago. And I could work with the singer. She picks me up. She picked me up with her car, and we went to the studio, and we rehearsed that. We were both in quarantine. It was like a very strange situation, but it was managed since last October. And the guy said, "Okay, no, we can do that. We can do that by YouTube." It was like that. Everybody with masks. It's really everybody. We three with masks. Me, Katja, and the technician. And he put like it was 4 cameras with robotic zooms, zoom in, zoom out, and also he was the sound technician. So it was really dystopic, really strange.
You can
Very
notice the deer statue wearing a mask in the background.
Oh yeah, exactly.
where is she from? What is her native
She's
language?
also Brazilian. She's from São Paulo.
Okay.
But she lives in Berlin since the 80s, I believe. No, since the 80s, since 88. So she's deeply in the Berliner contemporary music scene. Yeah. Yeah. She was the connection with this very traditional, that's strange, huh? Very traditional contemporary music scene. Siri, the Unerhörte music. I think it's the most traditional and pretty much like a concert situation in Berlin, because normally you have these informal concerts in Berlin. But this you go to a concert place. It's like a concert hall, which is a varieté theater also. So in the same place they have these drag queen shows or comedy shows, stand-up comedy. It's a very nice place. Anyway, guys, so the concert was that on this strange situation, very strange situation, in a concert hall. Not a hall, but traditional contemporary music. That's a genre a record store could love. Yeah, Cliff, that's it. Amoeba Records. That's right, guys. Yeah.
Amoeba Records, yeah, basically has that department.
Of traditional.
Yeah. Well, this is like the thing. I mean, this Cliff, you don't get me going on that. There's also, yeah, this like people using the term contemporary classical, which really just I don't understand it. Well, I do. I dislike it with a passion. But I think what Ale is saying is this, that there's actually, yeah, this tradition is now, you know, the acceptance of the experiment is old. But actually, you know, I would also argue, just to pontificate for a second, that, you know, this is how it's always been. There's nothing new about being new.
Yeah, and in a way, they are very traditional. They are in the same place every month since 1988. So they're quite traditional.
Oh, right, but you're talking about the concert setting. Yeah, that's another thing
Yeah,
I don't understand is how that can persist. Well, I think really maybe seen the end of it. I'm not sure anybody, even the people who pay for the big ticket concert halls for the orchestra, they're not going back anytime soon.
yeah, yeah. But those guys, they could do that, you know, and it's still going on. I mean, if you go to their website, they're still going on. They are still on. I can check here very easily. Hörte Musik, BK Theater. Yeah, they're still going on. The next one gonna be on third on the 30th this month. That's the website moment.
But another like web concert, or are they starting to do actually have people in the audience then?
I don't know. I think web concert because it's a theater, but since 3 weeks ago, people are starting to do live concerts here. I mean, for 10 people, spreading around 15 minutes music, and the same set. True Friends improvisation. They've made a set of improvisation and different sets for 10 people. Uh, uh,
So
Marina
basically,
and
a full house for experimental music.
yeah,
More.
yeah,
Okay.
much more. 40 people. It's like wow. Of course, they play it in a bar, so people went because of the wine, of course.
Right. But you're there till August.
Yeah,
Well, that's actually pretty soon. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm really
yeah,
losing track of time.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
this
time.
project is wrapping up. This is why you're there, and you're now almost done, and then
Yeah,
you'll come back to Rio.
yeah. We come back in the middle of 20th of August, and yeah, it's almost done. But I gonna have an exposition in July. It's allowed to do if you know you must count how many people are inside your a room. You just give a ticket and and forbid people enter until those people goes out. Yes, they're Germans, you know, they're very organized. This kind of thing, they're very precise on that. And until now, is going on pretty well. The cases are not going up. You know, that's why I told you. I told you in the beginning of our conversation is some people say, well, they are testing us. Maybe they are testing for the second wave for October. They're testing what's going up. Some people say that because on August the school gonna back here normally. The normal school gonna be back here. It's quite strange. Yeah.
But then it amazes me. Well, yeah, it amazes me still that you could adapt um, to this new situation and still um, um, get things going, like create uh, in a way which is somehow connected to your original idea to collect material in the city. How was this adaptation? Was there an adaptation like process? Was there a point in which you just thought, okay, I must change everything, or did it occur naturally? You just kept things going. How was it for you? I'm curious about it.
Man, at a certain point, I started to record from my window. Every day, I recorded the silence, and it's get really silent, day by day, really silent. First the traffic, then uh, people around, and a week before, a week after, sorry, a week after, children disappeared from the parks, and then the birds appeared. So it was like that, and they recorded every day, like a half an hour, 1 hour. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this material. I think I'm gonna make somehow a robo to listen to points to cut, because it's hours of material. Gonna make a software for that. But in a certain point, I just said, "Well, fuck off. I'm just what I'm gonna do. I could even come back to Brazil because there are no flights anymore." In a certain point, and in a certain point, and then the guy from the foundation said, if you would like to stay in Germany, we're gonna pay you until the end of your scholarship. I said, what's going on? They're gonna pay me for staying here? Okay. And then I started to change. Really, this composition was a kind of task I had to make, and then I had to adapt to this new situation. And those dreams appeared very, very deep.
That was my question. Like, what
Yeah.
can you talk more about the dreams and how that integrated? I think I
Sorry.
missed it. So you shifted the once the pandemic came, you started to integrate the dreams of yours. I was kind of hoping you could talk more about that.
Well, I just it was more vivid, and in some point I've decided to combine with those field recordings, because they were in certain points so, how can I say, so weird to me. I mean, those sonorities, they are beautiful, but also so I was like a complete foreign. I'm completely out of this place, and then those places are disappearing actually, because I went in the Alexanderplatz by bike when I was allowed to go out. People were allowed to go walking or biking in the middle of the quarantine. So when it was officially allowed, I went to Alexanderplatz by bike in like a Monday, 10 a.m. and it was complete desert. It was completely desert. Everybody was home. Only people biking. Some people biking, but like very weird. So even those sounds were past in a way. And my dreams were really, 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 really strong. They were really impressive.
This is supposedly
And
a
I decided-
worldwide phenomenon, actually, that people are like that the pandemic induced a lot of very vivid dreaming. Or it may have
Yes.
been quarantine. There's some theories that you didn't because you didn't have enough stimulation, that people were dreaming more, at night. I've read all kinds of stuff about that.
Yeah, me too.
It's like that as well. I've been having lots of vivid dreams, and not only vivid dreams, but very how should I say that? How very very complex and meaningful dreams. In a way,
Exactly.
yeah, it's like substituting for the kind of situations that I would have in I will call it real life.
Yes, I've had the same. In Actually, I dreamed in very desert situations. I've been in a desert boat or in a desert restaurant in the boat. I had several dreams with boats. That's why I choose this text, maybe from Guimarães Rosa. And at some point, I've tried to mixture um, this contemporary music uh, typical piece with a Hörspiel situation, or a piece of for radio, a radio piece. I don't know why. I just mixed both situations, Hörspiel piece with a music piece somehow, and that's the way I introduced the dream subject into the piece. And I don't know, from the research point of view, it's completely absurdly out what I've done. But in a way, I had no idea what to do with those field recording materials, and it's still a problem for me just to publish them or how to make the piece of them, make a collage of them. I don't know. I still have this problem because I was talking with Peter Kuzak, which is an artist which works with field recordings, and he told me he was very in some years ago he was very upset about to make a kind of music journalism, so be very precise and very well to create an idea of the places he visited. But at some point, he started to perform with field recordings and to forget about those connections with the reality, as you say. And I asked him why, and he said, "Well, because I just would like to do that."
He
But
has a strong background in improvisation also, right? That he tries to mix with his field recording praxis nowadays.
yeah, he's doing that nowadays. He's mixing field recording with improvisation. Actually, he's improvisation with field recordings. He created a device for, well, a MIDI device.
That strange guitar of his.
Yeah, he works with the string guitars. Yeah, but he himself he works in the computer. That's
What's the name of the person? Can you put it in the chat? I don't know that guy.
Suck. One anecdote that occurred to me actually during Melissa's presentation, our second session, was that Peter Cusack, he's from, if I'm not mistaken, he's from Britain,
yeah.
right? He's been a key figure in the improvisation scene in England. He had projects with David Toop, and so. But he has this very famous project of his called Sounds from Dangerous Places.
Exactly.
He shares field recordings from Chernobyl. and from mines from, if I'm not mistaken, Nigeria, things like that. I'm not 100% certain about the Nigeria, but it's from mines, and they
That's
are
not. It's
all.
in Georgia.
Yeah, cool.
Mine.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it's Georgia. But they are all supposed to be dangerous places for people. And one of the anecdotes that occurred to me is that this project now is completely, it's kind of obsolete because everywhere now is
It's
dangerous.
quite.
It's a dangerous place, right? So the field recording practice itself, if it is defined as recording out of a studio, the whole of the field recording practice is Peter Cusacks sounds from dangerous places, right?
But Paul, I was talking. I interviewed him in the middle of the quarantine by a device like that, and he told me he is still doing field recordings in Berlin. And this is another. This is a very. This is a topic is changing my mind because the perception I've had from the pandemic times in Berlin is completely different from people in Rio. Completely. So we went out all the time. He also was doing field recordings on streets in Berlin. I was afraid to do that, but he lives in Berlin since ages. He's senior. He's like almost 70 years, and our perception here was completely different. We're completely in a bubble, safe, and very aware about the risks, but the health system never collapsed, never ever.
I can
And,
imagine that.
That's just been my impression of like, yeah, my family who's in Vienna and my friends who are in Berlin. They kind of have the same sentiment.
yeah.
Because
So even there's a gap between reality north south, but now America is in the same situation as Brazil. That's quite crazy because America is much more rich in terms of economic, has much more money and power than Brazil, but people had the same situation as in Brazil. That's really disturbing for me.
here, and we had a presentation connected to Unirio, was a presentation as an Instagram live. Marcelo and I, both your colleagues, we did this presentation, and Luca was there. I was talking about field recording, and at the end of the field recording, and at the end of the presentation, kind of teasing me, Luca sent a question like, oh, do you have any impressions of what field recording means nowadays? Because, I mean, if you have to get out to do something here in Rio, we are doomed, right? And then I told him and everyone else that there is this, and this is connected to what you were saying about recording from your windows, right?
Yeah.
There has always been this weird connection between field recording and the image of the window, right? As many covers of field recording albums are pictures of windows, right?
Yeah.
There is this detached thing in the praxis itself, so like some sort of a sublime experience. You're there hearing things, but hearing from a distance, right? How nowadays the window or the windows, right? I'm not talking about the operational system, but the idea of window or the TV or the computer screen, how this is, how this became like sort of a frame to the outside world, right?
Yeah.
How it became somehow, because I've been doing also recordings, but from my windows, right? How this became a platform for field, a safe platform for field recording. It's just thinking out loud with your comment
Yeah,
about
but
recording.
it's interesting to see how that changes depending on where you are in the world, because
Yeah, yeah,
like I have friends. I'm on the Facebook, several field recording groups and whatnot, and I have friends from Scandinavian countries where right at the beginning of the pandemic they would say, well, yeah, you need to be social, you have to practice social distancing, you have to be far from people. But if you live in Norway, you take a 10-minute bike hike and you're in the middle of the forest, and the nearest person is like 5-10 miles away from you. And
Yeah.
especially when it comes to field recording, you see that practices that for us Brazilians is completely insane. Like, well, I just, the idea of a drop rig. I left my sound devices with 2 DPA microphones outside during the night for 24 hours.
No.
Like that
Oh,
doesn't exist. It's, yeah, go to Floresta da Tijuca and leave your $10,000 worth of equipment during the night.
Or even go there.
Or
Yeah.
just go there. Yeah, just go there. So, and it's funny because that came to me while Ale was saying, well, because I live, in a place in Rio that behaves like this, and the other, the Praça da Bandeira, just making a recording there. It's a dangerous place. So this idea of recording in a dangerous place, I mean, I don't know that I'm gonna look it up, some of Pete's work apparently, because it looks interesting. But I would say to him, yeah, go make a recording 2 in the afternoon at Praça da Bandeira. That's a dangerous place.
yeah, it's like, yeah, I feel you, man.
Yeah, and
I think you kind of pointed out a very valid criticism of a title like that, especially coming from someone who's in a very, very safe place.
yeah,
I
I've
think
done work.
there's probably criticism for dangerous places for people where people live in very safe places.
Yeah,
Sure.
I remember I did a project. It's not a artist project. It's just I was hired to do recordings for a campaign for a clothing brand in Brazil, and we had to do some recordings in the favelas. And it was a 360-degree mic. It was like a VR mic. So we have this huge thing with 36 lenses all around. And at some points where we were walking around, you had to put, because there's no hiding behind the camera. It's a 360-degree camera. So we had to put, cloths on top of the thing. Of course, we were there with people from the community. You cannot just go in there by yourself. But at some points that we were just walking around, you had to, put some cloth on top of it just to make sure for the people who were from the community that were sitting around with rifles in their hands. There's no sugarcoating. Like, they were sitting around in their spots with the radio and the rifle, and we were passing by with the camera, with a cloth on top of it. So it's a very, very different. Like, it's very safe to go to a forest even during the pandemic because you're far from everyone. It is safe, right? If you live in Denmark or.
Oh yeah, we have to avoid beers or something like that.
Yeah, just the bears or.
For me, it's bears. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But
not beers.
That's the thing. Also, that's the thing. Also, with kind of like probably the equivalent in Brazil is favela tourism. When I was living in Mexico, I met a Dutch guy once who went and he was going to go live in an area called Nessa, and Nessa's it's a residential neighborhood, but it's really not a place where anybody goes to just for touristic reasons at all. And my best guess there actually was why someone would do that, because even people from Mexico City don't really casually go out there. I mean, someone from Mexico City will know someone from there, and so then you'll go out there. I went once to a gallery opening there, but this guy was a Dutch guy coming, and he was going to live there because he wanted to experience what it was to live in a rough neighborhood, which, being someone personally who's traveled a lot, I don't really ever need to do that. I want to just stay safe. And also, some of the worst neighborhoods that I've been to still are here in the States, and I've traveled a fair amount. But what it was, and it's so strange, and I couldn't really figure it out. He was a nice guy, intelligent, and I think the best bet I had was there was a bit of guilt. There was like some kind of guilt about his privilege that he needed, so that he needed to go put himself into unnecessary risk, to somehow grapple with. I mean, it's off topic, but
It's good. Yes.
But I'm suggesting that maybe there's something to that with this idea of recordings from dangerous places, or even maybe like you could say that about Phil Niblock's work about recording of people people working very manual labor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this project on Praça da Bandeira, when I was recording there, I was also taking pictures with a very cheap camera. And at a certain point, I was entering randomly in a street, and that street was the Vila Mimosa street. Vila Mimosa was the lighthouse street from that
The
area. Red
house.
house, yeah. And then a guy just said, "Oh, photographer, come here, don't end here. Go to the place." A very charming guy appears in the middle of the morning. Just no. Go ahead, don't enter. In a very polite and gentle way to protect me. Actually, he was protecting me. That's a very, because I was also recording with this hiding microphone on my I was using a hat at that moment, so he didn't know I was recording, but he called me the photographer. And I mean, I'm a white guy, absurdly with academic face. Guy just say, "No, photographer, come here, go to other side." And then I asked, "Oh, you know this place?" "Yes, I know, but let's talking about something else." Just he protected me from the risk. So and that's why I figured out I have to work with those microphones here, because nobody knows you're recording. They are very discreet equipment.
You know what they call field recording in dangerous places.
Yeah, you can do everywhere.
They just call it field recording.
Yeah, but people think I'm just using a headphone. To, there's also a point of not showing up your recording. That's an ethic point also, because nobody knows I am recording them, and sometimes people don't want to be recorded, right?
This is the question I was going to ask.
Yeah, look, yeah.
Um,
Uh,
if you use recordings with people's voices without asking permission, and what do you think about it?
yeah, I'm starting to think about it, but it's becoming a problem from some time. Since some time, I've made a project with Luca and Zé Ricardo. We've made a long film recording, and we have many problems with that because we were in a very dangerous situation, and we recorded some strange conversations and strange situations. We recorded a fight from, I don't know, a couple in a train, and we never used that recordings, of course, because for many reasons. But and other people's voices, what that were very specific situation. But now I'm starting to think about if I use or not those voices. But I don't think it's a problem if there are nothing pointing out a specific person or a specific situation. If it's more
Yeah,
blurred.
that's so nice to hear. I think, yeah, I had an experience once that really shaped my thinking about that, and I've grappled with it too. And I think they kind of nailed it on the head. But I saw a film that was using a recording of a man who spoke. He was a bird. He had a bunch of birds in a cage, and he spoke with the birds, right? And it was a scene in this movie where there was this kind of old man speaking to birds. And in the movie, the reaction to the audience was that people laughed. They thought it was comical. And I thought that was so insensitive that, this guy who really loved these birds and was having, something he does with these birds became the butt of a joke for this person's art project. And I found that so problematic. But there's ways to, it's not even just that, yeah, this person pointed out a situation in a person, but it's that it also became, a joke to their audience. And so I think that there's also a responsibility about how you use it, and that's really, I think it's a case by case thing, but I felt so sickened immediately by that particular instance of misuse of unrequested participation in an art project.
It's very delicate. It's delicate, for sure.
I was just saying I appreciate hearing your answer, because I think this is exactly what that person did not consider.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a thin line, right? You want to propose something that at some points blurs the limits of documenting daily life, but it's also a music piece, right? To how to arrange it in such a way that it is respectful to everyone involved, right? Because at the same time, I feel, for instance, that if you announce, okay, I am recording the conversation now, you lose what you intended, which is to record a natural occasion, right? I always think this is a very difficult balance to achieve. Usually, um, and most of the voice uses I had up to now in works of mine, usually I am also in a delicate situation. People could laugh about me, I would say that. But I usually ask for permission after the fact, if I can, or I do not use them at all.
I don't think there's a one size fits all answer to how to deal with that. But often I think of the term the unwilling victim, you know, and does this one is the person didn't get their participation solicited, and two, do they get victimized by it? And in this particular case, the person did. In my anecdote, they became the butt of a joke, and you know, so it wasn't just that it was an unsolicited recording, and you know, or for example, had they solicited it and it kind of under the understanding that this might be a comical event, and yeah, it's really difficult stuff. I don't think there's a one size fits all, but I understand what you're saying about yeah, you don't want to open the box, so to speak.
And also, something which I could experience myself, one of the characteristics of Ale's project is that he intends to record languages that he is not able to understand.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and I could experience that also myself. I could not decide if the content was sensitive or not, right? But at the same time, you have this idea of doing such a project, right? How to achieve a balance between these different forces. This is a difficult one.
Well, I have a question, Ale. And that, yeah, speaking towards that. So, did you before for the recordings in the languages that you did not know? Did you then have them kind of like checked to make sure that you hadn't, because you didn't understand the language? Did you find someone? Like, did you find someone and be like, look, I had this recording. I think it's quite nice, but I just want to make sure that I didn't record someone, you know, something sensitive.
Yes, I've checked some of them, and was nothing really. Just chit chat on the street or or buying something on a street shop. Was nothing really sensitive at all, but not all the recordings. I couldn't check all the recordings, and some of them I keep because of they sounded very well for me. That's a very
You could end up in a precarious situation where someone who's a native speaker in that language said, you know, comes up to you and says that person just said, like, for example, just a trivial case, like that person, for example, said the most offensive thing, you know, ever.
It can be, yeah. Can be. That's the risk of this situation. That's the risk you're putting yourself. That is funny because in the beginning of my stay in Berlin, I had a very bad German understanding. And then I started to and recorded a lot. And then I started to study German very fast, almost every day. I had classes every day. And of course, my understanding grows up and up and up. And my interest for German voices disappeared completely. That's the other point of it.
This is a fantastic remark, I would say. I mean, fantastic in the sense that I can totally relate to that. It's like there is, I will call it again into discussion. There is this absurd analogy which I've been thinking about. This Marvel Comics character called the Daredevil, right? He is blind and he has all his senses really potentialized in a way that he can rebuild the world around him, a world which is view-centric, let's say, but he can rebuild it through his other senses. In a way, he is the opposite of Pierre Schaeffer. He had what he does is that he is in an acousmatic situation, but his interest, the idea for him to survive and do what he has to do, he has to fill everything with sense. And in a way, what he loses in this situation is the interest for noise and the interest for music in an extreme, right? So this is, for instance, one of the things I tried to do in Brussels in a project which is very similar to yours. But my idea was to comprehend almost everything, or what I could. So I started from a situation in which there was this interest in the musicality of the voice, but what I wanted was turn that into language, right? And somehow you lose interest in music, but to understand what these other people were saying to you.
Yeah, but when you're in a situation like that, when you don't speak any language of the place except Portuguese and English, and that's funny because if you touring in Berlin, you have the impression everybody speaks English, but it's a lie. Maybe 40% of people speak some English, but most of the people don't want to speak English at all, and they don't speak, they don't understand, and just don't want, especially on the other part of the city, of the east part of the city. And I were living in the east part, on the deep east, in the beginning of my stay here. I've been in Köpenick, which is an area on the southeast. And that's a very suburban area. And then I was like, I can't understand the word on the streets. I just figured out by context. That's the point. Just figure out what's going on by context.
Yeah, now what that it's even, there's an extra layer of not just, well, everybody speaks English, so there's no problem, you know, which is like, I'm saying this because I had that experience moving to Europe like 2 years ago. I first came to the Net and lived in the Netherlands for almost 4 months, and everybody in the Netherlands speaks perfect English. You know, the 9-year-old kid of the woman who worked with me, she spoke 4 languages. So communication was not a problem because everybody speaks English. But there's still the fact that everything around you is in a language that you don't understand. So it's very difficult to decode the city in some sense. You know, I have the comparison that I make in my head is, well, if you're in a certain part of a city in Brazil that you don't know, like you've never been to, you know, Cuiabá, and you see a sign of saying that somebody with a sign on the street saying, "I buy gold, compro ouro," you know what type of region of the city you're in. So you're able to, you know, make sense of the signs, even if everybody around you speaks English. So communication might not be a problem, but not understanding the context of things around you, it's another layer. And after the Netherlands, I moved to Vienna, and in Vienna it was even worse because not only I didn't speak German, but not a lot of people like to speak English there. It's like Germany, but even worse. So they speak English a little bit, but they don't like to speak it. So I had to learn a little bit just to survive. And then I stayed for a little while in Croatia, and then hell broke loose. It's a different alphabet. It's like, fuck it. So it becomes, it's it's oppressive in a way. And I didn't realize that until I came to Portugal. Because when I came to Portugal, I was like, okay, I can breathe again. You know, there's everything around me makes sense. So it's funny how that works, because it's not even there. There's an extra layer that goes beyond communication. You know, I'm sure if any of us here, you know, we move to Finland. Well, in Finland they have a very strong accent, but if you go like to Sweden, they speak good English there, but everything is so foreigner. You know, to use Paulo's term, like, you know, this foreigner condition is unescapable. You cannot. It's completely oppressive all the time, and that goes beyond just communication.
And for us, for Brazilians, we have somehow a mono sound or mono language. Brazilians are very monolithic in language. Everybody speaks Portuguese and only Portuguese. Most of the people speaks only Portuguese, and we are and Portuguese is a very outside language. It's an outside language in this context. So when you go to this ambient, it's very oppressive, like you said. I mean, you can have a proper conversation with nobody at the street using English. In Berlin, it's like that. If you go to Copenhagen, you can even have a conversation like, what's the price of this and that, and why is that expensive? That's not possible at all. Of course, if you know a little bit of German, I mean, a little bit, you can do that.
Yeah, it's exactly what happened to me. Like 4 or 5 months that I was in Vienna, I was like, okay, I have to get a A1 level of German to go to the supermarket and make the woman understand myself, because otherwise I'm screwed. And that's what I did.
You can have some conversation like, oh, it's raining today, and
but it's very, very functional. Very, you know,
Yeah, but also you notice the extreme importance of what you're calling functional, right? Functionality.
No, of course, yeah.
When you suppress this full range communicative tool that you have, you notice the extreme importance of, I don't know, the names of the ingredients of the food you're trying to
cook.
Yeah, or getting a bus in Croatia. Trust me, the functional is important.
It's important, yeah. You can get the wrong.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Ale, can I ask, and this is maybe changing the subject a bit, but your musicological background, maybe the other people here know you better than I do, but I'm kind of curious about your background in musicology and how that has affected your work, both as a musicologist and as a composer.
Well, Michael, I had a very, how can I say, strict formation inside this electroacoustic, typical electroacoustic formation. I mean, I've made all this, I've studied not very systematically, but a little bit, all these ways, these contemporary ways to do electroacoustic music. And also studied the theory very deeply. I mean, the Schaefferian theory about electroacoustic music. To sum it up, I think this is my background. So I wrote a lot about musique concrète, but I also worked with movies, but not the music the sound, all the sound theory about movies. I mean, Michel Chion, this kind of thing, and combine that in a way. So that's my main musicological background.
Okay, so it really aligned actually with your compositional interests.
Yeah, it keeps because we're starting to work with that, and then we have a lot of material, and in a certain point, it's difficult to change, because we have done a lot. I mean, pads, sounds, ideas you wrote, so it goes up into your. It's easier to do that if you have this an accumulation of that. Yeah, it's really connected to my music, but from some years to now, I'm trying to escape this. No, I think from 10 years or more, I've made more performances instead of this situation. This situation I showed you, which is a very concert situation. I mean, a piece, a written piece, and a very precise piece without improvisation or something like that. But most of my work also is connected with improvisation with objects I've created or a set of things I've created. With Juliano Bicho, for instance, I've done a lot, but also with other people. I had this. I think I put that a link of that. I can find it easily. Yeah, you can find this on this link a kind of performance, a performance I've made with Juliano that is with turntables, and also this website we can find some of this work. I've worked a lot with that in this on this environment. Oh, okay, I'm reading now. Sorry, guys, I'm reading what you wrote right now. So it's a mixture of that. I had this performance installation situation and more concert electroacoustic music background. And it's funny because on this particular project, I've come back to this situation, and I've noticed I've never made before this kind of piece. I mean, this kind of electroacoustic music with live performance in a very precise type of writing. So I really wrote this piece. It's really precise. All the piece is really precise. I mean, it's precise in detail, in time, in articulation between the live performance and the tape, and also the live electronic performance. They are very scored. Everything is scored. I mean, so that's completely different from my.
From what I know from your work, it seems like something new actually. Yeah, I noticed that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's completely new, and on the other way, it sounds old. It sounds. It's funny, and it was for me. It was very difficult to compose on this situation because, well, it's hard to find the proper timing on this tape versus performance writing for that, the proper timing for it. I mean, the musical timing is not easy. So it was my first experience of the years.
I have one last question. I
Yeah.
mean, my last question. If anyone has other questions, I'm not wrapping it up necessarily, but it's connected to this topic. It's connected actually to the idea that, of how this opposition, let's call it, uh, to composition, right? There are many
Yeah.
people nowadays opposing composition as a praxis. Oh, what I do is not composition. What I do is, I don't know,
Symphony.
sound art or improvisation, or this is not a work of, this is not a work. This is for instance, process, or I don't know. We could like input the names there that come to your to your head right now.
Yeah.
You see what you've been doing lately related to this last piece of yours in which you are frankly addressing it as a composition. But I also heard you speaking, oh, what I do is not composition at all. How to? This is something actually. This is something that is of extreme interest to me as well because I find myself at some points adopting different positions in this. If this is a debate, in this debate.
Let me
Well,
just
it's
add something to the question before you answer, because I think it has to do with it.
yeah.
And can you answer what he asked, but also include in the answer, do you think that it changed the fact that you have to present, you have to say to the person who gave you the money, this is what I did, because I see you have like a PowerPoint presentation, like you're accountable for it, like you have to present the results of the process, and in quote unquote is a lot easier to do that with a compose, and there's écriture that you can say it's here, then I did this piece last 30 minutes, it's a piece of metal with a piezo disc and I improvised with it. If you think that changed somehow, the fact that you are accountable to present the results to someone in a more formal way.
I don't think so, Magno. I think nowadays you can present a video, you can present a text, you can present a process, a video process. That's not the point anymore. Actually, on my project for my scholarship, I'm not supposed to produce a composition. So I did wrongly, because of this particular situation. I worked with a singer, and she's not an improviser. She's a singer in the proper term, in the strict term. She reads music, and she's from the conservatory. She's very good. She's very precise, etc. But she has this background, and I've made a piece with her or for her. I don't know. That's those articles are strange. Of course, I did a piece with her. I didn't make without her. It doesn't exist without her. Yeah. Another singer not gonna have her higher extension, of course, and it's not gonna have her Portuguese accent on the beginning of the piece. So I made with her, but in a way, it's back to the. I don't know if I answered your question. I think nowadays it's
Yeah.
not a problem. We can present whatever you were in the contract. It were in the contract. So if we were a process gonna be. But as answer to Paulo's question, I think there is a difference, especially on the process and the way you present that. and of course where you present that, the situation, the social situation you present that, it's gonna work or not. For instance, if you remember Luc Ferrari's Musique Promenade was an installation, but an installation didn't work as installation at all because he composed that. It's a very composed situation. So he wrote, it didn't went well by the audience. I remember that he wrote on that book, edited by GRM in France. He wrote that in an interview. I didn't work quite well because the situation was more. I was upset because I was expecting too much. Sometimes I've made that. I've made a piece in USP on the University of São Paulo last year or the other year, with the sounds I've captured in the Marielle Franco's day
Demonstration, right? It was
demonstration, and the day she were yes, in the demonstration, and I've presented there that piece in an installation situation, and it didn't work at all because it was conceived as with a narrative arc in time. So if people were with headphones, it worked. But I presented as a also in an open air situation or an open sound situation. It didn't work at all because it was just disturbing and the message was gone. So the message I would like to pass with the music is a very political, with a lot of political content, and it was gone completely. So I believe that's not only a difference of it's a difference of of tradition and also of techniques and places and situations, and they exist. You can try to combine or to, but I think the difference is very nowadays they are very marked, I believe. You can think about the 60s. On the 60s, those differences were more attacked, more in question, to avoid to collapse the difference. But I think nowadays we are more in a more conservative and more who cares about the situation, I believe. And people just turn us off, like okay, it's a composer doing something. But if you're in a concert, they are there for listening, and that's why, for instance, on the last time we've been the same on the UFI, the Fluminense Federal University. They had a show up of sound art, and they invited me to play the collection of peripatetic collection of sounds on the on this situation of of uh, what was that? It was an exhibition, an exhibition, and there was a vernissage, yeah, the vernissage situation, and I knew that the piece I've made on that situation didn't work because it's very silent. So I couldn't keep attention and all, and I say to them, "Oh, I prefer to play in the concert room, in the concert room, because then I will have this," and it didn't work as well. The place that did work was in Fosso. Fosso did work quite well
Yeah.
because yeah, because
agree.
there's a mix of both situations. People are there to listen, but people are also there to doing something else. You know? So it was a composition mixture with performance, and this situation worked. It's people stop to do something else. Let's do a little bit. It's different to a concert situation, whereas a distance, a very long distance between the public, the listen, the listener is not mixtured with the. We are not in the same place. That's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Joke number one. Yes, and in Fosso, the sound engineer is really great. People told me.
Yeah, it's a great
Just
sound engineer.
joking. And number
Much
two,
better than the other situation.
the joke number two is you opted in Soma Rumor Festival for the concert situation. And then I was invited to fill up the spot in the vernissage. And what I did was to blast the sound system.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Because I faced the same, exactly the issue. No one was listening. People were just drinking and talking about whatever.
Yeah,
And then
exactly. And then it's very is if you don't be listening, it's frustrating. You for a performance, I mean.
yeah.
But you've choose wisely, maybe.
Yeah, so for you, you think that this terminology could be used depending on the situation. That's kind of what you were. Oh, now this is a composition setup, or now this I should adopt another.
No, I think the terminology comes with an object. The objects are different. They have different
Yeah,
nature, and also the situation are different. So it's the opposite. Maybe it's not the terminology, but the objects and the situations, and then the terminology comes with. I believe. So the terminology is not. They are there and they mark traditions. I believe. If you like to blend it, you have to be aware of it. That's the
yeah.
point. You don't have to be. You, you you can just fuck up, of course, but maybe it's a good idea to be aware,
I
or
see.
you're gonna be frustrated. You're gonna frustrate yourself. You're gonna be frustrated. Yeah. Well,
Cool.
Does anyone have more questions? Because if I'm not mistaken, and I can kind of notice that Alexandre is kind of tired right now.
oh yeah,
I just want to say thanks, and I'll when we're ready, I'll stop the recording. I also have a question to the other participants about next week about someone I could potentially invite, but I can ask that once I stop the recording. But thank you, Ale. That was very nice.
Thank you guys. Thank you for the invitation. I miss you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I miss you too, man. Come back if you can.
Well, I will try. If you have flights.
Okay, I'll stop the recording then.
Okay.